From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
I'm a gangsta, but y'all knew that.
Today with special guest Detective Matt Wharton of the Sweetwater County, Wyoming Sheriff's Office to discuss the 2018 disappearance of Terry Meador. Remember, if you've got a tip for Melissa on anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837 or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. And now here's your host, pounding the pavement for clues and pounding her fist on her desk as she waits on hold to talk to the returns department at autopsiesareus.com, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. I don't think you can return an autopsy, producer Mark.
Well, if anybody's going to try, it'd be you. If you're disappointed with anything you get over the internet, you call them, baby, and you get good results too.
Who has an autopsy over the internet?
Well,
you're a weird man.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say you're a weird man. So yeah,
tell me you wouldn't shop there if it were available.
Look, from the man who purchased me for my 40th birthday a shirt that said 1-800-AUTOPSY
See?
And a coffin purse.
Right.
I don't feel like I need to defend myself.
You don't.
So
I just think you'd like it, that's all.
I do have to say the LA County Coroner's office has a gift shop, and it's awesome. You can't probably go now because of COVID, but you can order stuff online, and it's adorable. It's totes adorable. So yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yes, autopsiesareus.com.
It's not a thing.
No.
And if it is, it should be stopped.
Probably.
You should be stopped.
Probably should be reported to the FBI or something.
I think so too.
All right.
So we need to thank some new YouTube subscribers, KF, Edward, and Impaler the Monarch.
Oh, I like that one.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I should call them Imp or Mon, Archie, Ark, Impaler the Monarch. Very grateful to KF, Edward, and Impaler the Monarch, and really grateful to Tipster Jerry, who sent us a fantastic email with a couple of cases. And Jerry works in the death investigation industry, I'm going to say. And he is also our newest Patreon supporter. And we just already adore him.
We hope that we'll be able to tell you more about him, because I would love to get him on the show.
I know he's like, no, I'm boring. And I'm like, you have lived a fascinating life, my friend. But he has given me two really interesting cases, and I'm looking forward to digging in. But I would love more than anything to speak to Tipster Jerry. But we'll see. Maybe we can coax him out of his shell, because I think he has a very interesting life and career choices. But you can't make people come on your show, even though one day
we're working on that.
Right. Jerry will wake up after he's been chloroformed and he's sitting in a chair across from me, and I'm just peppering him with questions.
That's the general idea.
You just watch out, Tipster Jerry. We are really blessed. We have such amazing listeners. We can't thank you enough. And the number of cases you have sent us that are so interesting and different and unique that I've never heard of, we really can't thank you enough. So please know you do not have to be a Patreon subscriber to send us an email. Please email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. We would appreciate if you would go to whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever you hear podcasts, and leave a review if that platform allows you to. Apple Podcasts absolutely does, and that's where people tend to read reviews, and that's where people find us, and we need people to find us. So thank you to the Tipsters. And Producer Mark, I have covered up the phone number on the sign. Is it 832?
All you have to remember is that it's 832-TIPSTER.
832-TIPSTER. I've covered it.
It's 83. How did you cover it?
I have a little heart over it.
Oh, okay. It's 832-847-7837. That's right.
So you can call us on the Tipster hotline. I have a sign to remind me to do the housekeeping part of this podcast, and I forget continually. So yeah, but I covered up, which is, I'm delightfully funny. I covered up the sign that I'm supposed to read. So email us, jttipsters@gmail.com. We would be grateful if you would rate or review and subscribe to this podcast. And you can call us at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. So now the housekeeping is over, thank the good sweet Lord, because I'm obviously really bad at it. So we had the wonderful fortune of speaking to Detective Matt Wharton, the patient detective who more than once called me, and on my cell phone, I was in my car, and my Bluetooth wasn't working, so the poor man had to hear my selection of music, which, as we know, is typically old school rap. So that refers to the intro where I said I'm a gangsta, but you all know that because the poor man spent probably a good 30 seconds listening to Drop It Like It's Hot.
I think that's hilarious.
At 11. And I kept yelling and him saying, I'm sorry, hold on, I'm Bluetooth. I finally had to pull over to connect the Bluetooth. So, and he was so patient and laughing and saying that's okay, I like rap. And I'm like, okay. So he's a patient man, you can tell. And this case came to us from Tipster David, who has just been such a wonderful friend of the show, so supportive, sent us a wonderful email saying that he had volunteered for some search and rescue operations on Terry Meador, the 74-year-old gentleman who went missing in October of 2018 from the Pine Mountain area of Wyoming. And it's a very big case there, and there has been a lot of work done trying to find him. And Matt Wharton was so gracious to send me a wonderful file with redacted information on certain people's ages, information where they lived, but for the most part, such a great complete file.
Oh, he's very forthcoming.
He's very open and helpful and answers questions and wants to be asked questions. And I mean, he's a terrific dude, and we were really blessed to get to interview him. So here is the interview with Detective Matt Wharton. So we're really blessed today to have with us Detective Matt Wharton with the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department, and he is the person in charge of the case of Terry Meador, who we're going to talk about today. But the first thing we want to talk about is you, Detective Wharton. We've had a couple of wonderful conversations and some interesting emails, but you're an interesting cat, and not just because you drink Mountain Dew, which is just one reason why I already adore you. But tell me about you. Have you lived in Wyoming your whole life?
Yes, I have.
Awesome.
I grew up in Green River, Wyoming, southwest part of the state. Graduated there in 2001. Joined the military. Went to the military for about 3.5, 4 years. Got out in 2004. And I started my law enforcement career in 2005.
Wow.
In detention. So I worked in the detention realm of basically corrections for 2 years. And then from there, joined the patrol division at the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office and was on patrol for 11 years. In 2016, I was assigned to the detectives division, and I've been in detectives ever since. I'm an affiliate with the Wyoming Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So I'm broadening my toolbox basically and getting into different aspects of the job.
Absolutely. And I think you have the temperament for it. You're very patient and even keeled. Nothing seems to really ruffle your feathers too quickly or too much. And if they do, you sort of get them smoothed down pretty quickly. And I find a lot of detectives end up working on the internet crimes against children. That's a very interesting thing, I guess, because it's such a big, vast wasteland and they need people like you. But it's so interesting to me. There must be something in that detective gene that makes detectives want to do work like that too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So this case is one of those ones that I think you probably are interested in because of the weird mystery of it. I'm sure it happens. It's happened before. It'll probably happen again. But Terry's case is an oddity in my mind for many reasons. Every locale has its pluses and minuses, its challenges, its beauty, and Wyoming must be an interesting place to work when someone goes missing like this, because you have so much ground to cover.
Yes. So the county that, Terry went missing in is of course, Sweetwater County. We have 10,000 square miles in this county. We're larger than 6 states. And, we're the 8th largest county in the United States. So to put it in perspective, you could have 2 deputies working. This was around the time when I first started. Now we have more numbers and things of that sort. But when I first started, you'd have 2 of you on, 2 patrol deputies. And you could have a call in Granger, Wyoming, and the other deputy could have a domestic violence call in Wamsutter, Wyoming, and you would be over 100 miles away from each other.
It really is Longmire, huh?
Yeah, not with all the nice big mountains and things like that. Southern Wyoming's a little different from the northern part of the state. You think Wyoming, you think Jackson Hole, you think Kanye West moved to Cody.
How nice for you.
You think, and that's all at the northern part of the state.
Right.
So, the southern is more plainsy area, but we do have, mountains incorporated and things like that, but they're outside of the city limits. You got to drive a little ways to get there.
Yeah, I think you got to drive a little ways to do anything in Wyoming.
Yeah, you do.
So let's I'm going to go in the order that I know, but we're going to maybe jump back and forth in time just because some things didn't come to light until later but happened earlier. So let's start with the beginning of what I know and from the reports is that October 26th of 2018, it appears that a friend of Terry's finds his truck after his son BJ says, "Look, I can't get a hold of him. I need someone to do a welfare check." And someone, friends look at his home and they find that his truck and his rifle are gone. And it looks like his friend Bob finds his truck stuck. Is that sort of the beginning point?
Yes. So from the beginning of this, basically, BJ, Terry's son,
right,
was unable to contact his father. So he gets a hold of, Terry's friends and kind of sees if anyone has contacted him or heard from him. And, that, of course, they drive by, they don't see him. It's unusual for Terry to be gone that long. So Terry's residence is actually in the city of Rock Springs. So BJ had initially contacted the Rock Springs Police Department, initiated the missing persons report through them. And then BJ had known kind of where Terry was going to go go hunting. He knew where he had tags, and I mean tags by you got to have certain. You can't just go and hunt anywhere
right
in the state. When you're a hunter, you gotta put in for certain areas to get that certain animal. So say you want a deer in section 102 of the map, then you got to put in for that, and then it's a random draw. So therefore,
who gets a license or tag? Okay.
Yes, it's a random draw for the license. So therefore, Terry had a deer license along with BJ's son, Terry's grandson. So Terry would go up there to scout the area, see what types of animals are in the area, if there's any deer up there that he could take his grandson to. So
didn't he also have like an antelope license because was it antelope season? It wasn't quite deer season yet. He was just scouting,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and he was also going up there because he the type of person Terry is, he would take other people in the area because he knew it to go hunting, and he would help them out. So Terry was going up there to, scout about filling his own tags that he had, because the week later, the next week, they had plans. BJ told me they had plans to go up there and go hunting and fill his grandson's hunting tag.
Gotcha. So he's an inveterate hunter, and so he knows what he's doing. And yes. I think I read a quote that said it wasn't uncommon for Terry to be gone. His hunting trips were usually one day. He would come home. It wasn't like he would go and set up a tent or had a camp or something, but he would go hunting quite a bit. It may not be overnight or for, a very long stay, but he would go quite often.
Yes, he would. He would, that's the thing here in Wyoming, people right as soon as hunting season is over, people are already going out and scouting certain areas for certain animals.
For the next. Yeah. So you're either hunting or scouting.
Right, basically. And someone like Terry, he's retired. He, has some extra time in his life. He could, go out and do those types of things, already have it pre-planned. So when he takes his friends, his grandkids, his family members out to these certain areas, they're going to know where the animals are,
tracking them,
and where they're, most likely going to be, because some of these hunters are so good that they can almost predict where these animals are going to be at certain.
I'm sure part of it is
times.
a science. Yeah,
it is.
I bet
with game and fish, with them, okay, well, we have this many deer. We got to, everything is a science.
I bet. I mean, it sounds like it. I don't know a lot about hunting. We've had that conversation in the past too. But yeah, it does sound like a science, and it sounds like Terry was pretty good at it. It sounds like it was one of his passions in life. So he's 74, and he's a retired high school teacher, I think, right? Was it high school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he has some time on his hands, and his son and his grandkids, his family live a little bit of ways from him in a different county, right?
Yeah, so it's called Marvelton, Wyoming, and it's about, so as you're heading up 191 north towards Jackson Hole, why? Because the main way to get through to Jackson Hole in Wyoming is going into I-80, coming into Rock Springs and taking 191 north. So you're heading north, and BJ and his family live up in that area. Okay. About 60 miles.
60 miles. Okay. So it wasn't right around the corner, but it wasn't that far away. It was a little bit of a drive. But so it looks like the plans were that Terry had his home for sale or was getting it ready for sale because he was going to move in with BJ and his family. Is that correct?
Yes.
BJ had notified you that Terry had had some previous issues with his mental health. He was on medication, but if he didn't take it, things didn't always go well. And he had in 2005, he'd had an incident, ironically, moving his mother from her home into an assisted living facility. And he had stopped taking his medication and had been picked up by the police and spent some time in a hospital getting his meds adjusted. So it had happened before that he had some issues. I don't think that there had been anything recently other than there had been a DUI in another county. That seems like it was a rarity. It wasn't that, Terry had a massive amount of police activity or had anything really out of the ordinary other than just these few little blips on the radar. Is that sort of correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Terry was a, from everything, a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
He didn't go out and cause any issues. Terry had a lot of friends. He was just a great guy.
I'll tell you, I mean, and I never, knew him, didn't meet him, don't know his family, but I feel like you can get a lot from a picture, and a picture is just a second in time, right? I mean, it's a one-dimensional form of this person, but every time I look at a picture of Terry, I just want to smile because he has this look like a thinner version of what I imagine Ernest Hemingway would write about the old man in the sea. He also reminds me a little bit of The World's Most Interesting Man, like Stay Thirsty, My Friends, a little bit thinner version of that. But he looks like a quintessential character of an older, handsome gentleman. But there's this twinkle in his eyes. Like he has that thing that I have, that when he smiles, his eyes crinkle up, but you can see a twinkle in those eyes. And there are some pictures of him with his grandkids, and they are wrapped around him like he is a tree. Like they are throwing their entire bodies on him. And you see his entire countenance changes. His face melts. He looks soft. He doesn't look like the rugged Marlboro man. He looks like a sweet grandfather who just, loves his family. That's what he looks like from his pictures anyway.
That photo that you're talking about is the same photo I added to his NamUs information. And I actually printed off that NamUs poster of Terry with all of his information. And every time I come into work, I have it right there next to my computer. So, I don't forget.
No.
And, I can always, remember him and, not let the case, go undone.
That's a beautiful thing. I think the best detectives, I feel like in my mind, have pictures of the people they're looking for or trying to solve their case. I just think that's a wonderful reminder. I totally get that, and I honor that and respect that. And I'm glad you do that, because if they're there, you're not going to forget. And not that you would forget, and you never want to call them a cold case, but they can become an old case if they don't get solved. But that's such a great tool to have a picture of him there reminding you, hey, we still need to find out what happened to this guy. I love that. So there was a very large search after he is reported missing. And I have to tell you, and you'll have to explain the terrain, I guess, to the best of your ability to somebody who hasn't been there. When I read that Terry's truck was blue, I almost crapped my pants, because that truck looks as brown as shit. And I'm guessing it's because it was so dusty and dirty. So it's a 2013 Chevy truck that he had taken hunting. And at this point, I'm not even sure if we know the day he left. The last time BJ spoke with him was the 20th of October. And the truck was found on the 26th, but a hunter, and that's why I'm going back and forth in the timeline, because some things came to light later. A hunter reports seeing the truck stuck on Sunday the 21st in the divot, and saw some footprints that led away they finally just disappeared on a road. Would that be the access road that the hunter is speaking of?
That would have been one of the access roads.
Okay.
So Pine Mountain is what the area is called, where Terry was his truck was located at. So that Pine Mountain is known for a good hunting area for animals. It has sections of trees. But then it also has sections of sagebrush, and it has really steep terrain.
Right.
So it's not for someone to go out there that doesn't know the area.
Right.
In around the time of hunting season. because, you know, the hunting season is, you know, starts in August and it can end in November in that time frame. In October in Wyoming, it could start snowing in that time.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of moisture up in that area. It can cause the ground to be really soft.
Is that what happened, do you think?
Yes, that's how you get the ruts.
Okay.
And the terrain up there, because the tallest part of Pine Mountain is about 10,000 feet up in the air.
That would be chilly.
Elevation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So right now we're in February. You couldn't get up to Pine Mountain in a regular vehicle if you wanted. There's so much snow up there that it's good luck. And if you do go up there, you're more likely than not going to need search and rescue.
Need help to get you down. So it's the end of October, and he is potentially scouting for a future hunting trip. That's, you know, and it isn't uncommon for him. It's something he would do. It's something he's done lots of times. So his friend sees his truck in this extremely deep rut. Now, by the time you get there, or the other officers get there first, it appears that he has taken a shovel and tried to dig like a back tire out of the rut.
Yes. So in Wyoming, you're used to, you know, if you're from here, if you've driven around here out in the, you know, county, out in the desert area, you're going to get stuck. There's going to be a point in time when you get stuck and you're like, shoot, like you better hope you have a good friend or you're prepared properly.
Right.
You know? So, you know, Terry being from Wyoming, being stuck before, hey, I'm going to have a shovel with me where I go, you know? So yeah, basically Terry's truck, if you can picture this rut, you know, he was high centered.
What does that mean?
If you can think of high centered, you think.
Oh, I see. Okay. And I will post a picture of the truck because the picture is so compelling. It's so, I've just never seen anything like it, but apparently, according to you, it happens quite often, but it is a very compelling photo.
Yeah. So you can think of that happens quite a bit. So yeah, Terry, from all what it looks like from the investigation, he you know, he got it. The shovel was caked in mud.
Right.
If, you know, and it wasn't just your little, like, you know, excavation shovel. It was
a bit,
you
know, a big ass shovel.
A big shovel.
Yeah.
And you could tell where, cause the passenger side of this truck was stuck in the rut. The driver's side was up on the roadway. So basically what Terry was trying to do was, what it appeared is dig, you know, under the tire to where he could maybe get some traction on his vehicle to pull the vehicle back up onto the roadway.
Gotcha.
Especially in the 4-wheel drive, you know, because Terry's driver's side window was down when they first seen it. So you could tell where he got out, checked the vehicle, he was stuck. He actually got back in the truck because you could see shoe prints and mud prints coming into the vehicle, like on the armrest and things of that sort. Okay. So there was a point where Terry got out of the vehicle, tried to dig himself out, realized that wasn't going to work, got back into the vehicle at some point, and then exited it again.
Probably trying to figure out, what do I do now?
Correct, because cell phone service is very spotty up in that area.
And honestly, from what everything I've read, it really wouldn't effing matter because Terry wasn't really a digital dude. He didn't have a big digital footprint. He didn't have, you know, I mean, I was shocked that the last time he had spoken to BJ was like the 20th, and then there wasn't another communication on his phone until the 25th, when it looks like, you know, someone either left a long message or left a long text, which is, I've learned a lot from Terry's case and from this report about how things work about, I don't, in an hour long, drama TV show, you have 44 minutes to get a story out, and it's like, well, just ping his cell phone and we'll find him and that's it. Story's over. And it's just never that easy. It doesn't go like that very often, unless it's a younger person. Yeah, he just didn't.
Yeah, so with Terry, it would be very normal for him to shut his phone off.
Right. And BJ even said, he would go on a hunting or scouting trip and forget the phone or not charge the phone, and then it would die until he got back home. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's the thing with, not just the older generation, but with people who like the outdoors. I mean, you're not going to live in Wyoming if you don't like the outdoors.
Right.
Necessarily. I mean, people enjoy the outdoors here, and what is one thing you think of when you're in the outdoors that you probably shouldn't be doing is being on your phone,
right,
being on your tablet, doing things like that. So a lot of people will just shut their phone off.
And that's something that was very common apparently for Terry, is that it was probably something he used if there was an emergency, or if, he just needed to get a hold of his family. He wasn't like, playing, Animal Crossing on his phone. He wasn't, constantly, on his phone. It just was something that wasn't a big deal for him. He had other things on his mind, other things he wanted to do.
Correct. Yeah. So not just during hunting season, here in Sweetwater County, we have the Flaming Gorge. It's a big, recreational water, fishing, things of that sort. Good luck getting service out there.
Right. So it isn't only people that are not, wanting to use their phones as often because they're engaged in other activities. It's also, you may not even have the choice. You may not have the service to get. So I'm sure that was looked at pretty quickly. And on the ground, boots on the ground, there was a very large search. There was a 5-mile grid search. There were 150 people. I mean, I guess because of the terrain, it just sounds like everyone went to the ends of the earth. There was drones, ATVs, people on horseback, on foot, a helicopter, a medvac helicopter borrowed from the University of Wyoming. Someone had a fixed wing aircraft. So there were lots of attempts made to find him. But at this point, do we even know how long he's been gone? By the time he's reported, could he have been out there already for 4 or 5 days?
According to BJ, he had last spoken with Terry on the 20th of October, 2018.
Right.
And then the 22nd of October, Terry was supposed to cut up antelope with a friend, but he didn't show up.
Okay. So that sighting by the hunter on the 21st of the truck makes sense.
Yes.
So he could have been from the 21st through the 26th when he is reported. He could have just been there the entire time because he didn't show up. I was unaware of the October 22nd date. I guess I skipped over that. But
no, and I got this from the search and rescue guy. He gave me a timeline.
Okay.
He created a timeline. So
he could have already been out there. Yeah, he could have been out there already for 4 or 5 days.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So the 21st is when the bear hunters noticed the vehicle stuck and abandoned.
And saw the footprints. Yeah, they were checking their traps.
Footprints.
Yeah.
Yes. Saw the footprints heading in a western direction.
When someone disappears in such an odd way and nothing of theirs is found, there have been a lot of theories, like Terry could have gotten a ride from, a long haul truck driver or anyone. Is that something like, do you think he could have made it to where he was going, like the way the footprints were showing? Would he have made it to a main road that would have gotten him a ride?
No,
I didn't think so either.
No, that's for him to get to. So the footprint or the tracks that were leaving the truck, and the bear hunters had noticed those on the 21st. Those were heading in a western direction. So that would have been towards 191 South. From Pine Mountain to about 191 South is approximately 20 miles.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah.
And you're, the bear hunters, they tracked the footprints. They noticed them for about 2 miles until they veered off of the main roadway that would have been one of the access points to where Terry's truck was at.
Okay.
So if you can think of Terry getting out of the vehicle, not wanting to veer off too far, so he's walking down the 2-track dirt road for approximately 2 miles. And then all of a sudden the footprints go off into the trees. And this isn't just, like, okay, there's a tree here. This is very thick vegetation.
Dense, yeah.
Dense. Like if you could think of, camping in a very dense, thick tree-like environment, that's where he went off. And I say he, of course, we don't know exactly if those were Terry's footprints or not.
Right.
But, everything suggests that it would have been Terry's footprints leaving the truck and walking in a western direction toward 191 South.
Would that be something that someone would do logically whose truck had been stuck? Or does that seem like an odd choice?
That's not ideal.
Okay.
From where Terry's, the position his truck was stuck in, it was very tilted.
Right.
Now, if you think of a 70-year-old man, sitting in a truck that's tilted, it's got to be uncomfortable.
Was there any indication that he had hit his head in the truck, that there were any injuries he sustained in this weird thing that happened?
No, there was no indication indicating that Terry would have been injured. There was no
unable to make decisions
injury to the
or
windshield.
Right.
Yeah,
So I know there was a cooler found that just had water and soda. So it wasn't like he had something to drink that may have, made his decision making not on spot, like where you would want to be. He just, and there was no head injury potentially. He just got out after realizing, well, shit, I really am stuck and I can't dig out, and took off walking, but in an area that, wouldn't have been really helpful to him.
Correct. So to put it in perspective, so when I was working patrol, I remember one night specifically, we got a call from a guy. He was calling saying that he was lost. Basically, he was up on White Mountain. White Mountain is just right between Green River and Rock Springs. So it's out in the county. So he said, I'm lost. I came up here because it's called Horse Loop. And people come up to take photos of wild horses.
Oh, wow.
So he was up there taking photos, of these wild horses. And before he knew it, it got dark.
Right.
He had no clue where he was at. He started walking down the road, couldn't find his vehicle.
Oh boy.
So by being on the phone and talking with him, kind of getting a general idea, of course, what we do to help people that are missing or lost, we turn on our patrol lights. So they, and we talk to them and we're like, can you see our lights?
Right.
So we know if we're going in that general direction.
Right.
So I show up to this gentleman, he's very cold because it was in a colder time. And when it gets nighttime here, the weather can drop several degrees.
I'm sure.
And get very cold. It's a desert.
Right.
So, he gets in my vehicle. He's like, man, I think I'm 10 miles from my vehicle. I drive probably another 100 yards down the road and his vehicle's right there.
So he'd probably just been walking around really close to his car and didn't know, couldn't see it. Yes. So it can happen to anyone. And so it sounds like,
so to put it in perspective, you could get lost very easily in your mind.
Right.
You could, Terry could have very easily walked down that road, veered off a little ways because he maybe had seen something that,
Caught his eye.
say he's seen truck lights down there or something like that. Started walking down there to see if he can maybe find somebody. And then next thing you know, he's lost.
Right.
He has no idea to get back.
So it feels like we're following breadcrumbs here, but a few breadcrumbs are a cigarette butt was found 200 yards west of his truck. And when it was shown to BJ, he said, well, that seems like the brand that Dad smoked. So there's one cigarette butt that was found. And then like almost a year later, in September of 2019, search and rescue find a glove that a human remains detection canine had alerted on. But you had, taken that and had it tested, and there wasn't, there were swabs taken, but there wasn't enough DNA to prove it belonged to anyone, but certainly not that it belonged to Terry. And BJ did not recognize that style or brand of glove that Terry would have used. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So search and rescue here in Sweetwater County, when they go out and do training, they like to train, they just don't want to go out. They want to train actually like it's the real thing.
Yeah.
So they're going to not necessarily waste their time. They're going to choose, okay, well, we know we have this missing person. Let's go out there and train with these cadaver dogs and, get them training, and then, all in the same time conducting a search for Terry.
So there were scent dogs used and human remains detection dogs used, both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So then during that training, they did come across that glove.
Okay. But still not tied. Not sure it's tied to Terry. It's just.
Yeah. So we sent it off to the Wyoming crime lab, had them run their tests. Of course, like you said, it came back and they didn't locate any, evidence that would determine that it was Terry's or wasn't.
There are not a lot of clues in this case, for sure, things for you to go on. But I do want to talk about the one thing I'm going to call the red herring. I'm going to call it Pizzagate. Because,
yes.
Because that is one of the stranger things I've ever heard in all of my 3 years of doing this, and all of the detectives I've spoken to, and all the family members I've spoken to. Such a weird occurrence. So I guess like a few days after Terry went missing, but a few days before he was reported, some pizzas and lava cakes were delivered to family friends, the home of family friends of Terry. And Yes. It was pizzas they didn't order. And on the box, it said Meador, Terry's last name, Meador. And the wife was like, well, I felt bad for the pizza guy, so I gave him some money, but we didn't order these pizzas. And you, being the detective, you run this down. You find the cell phone number that it was ordered from. And I mean, this story is so bizarre. I want you to tell it. So you go ahead and explain Pizzagate.
Okay. Yes. The pizza start. So when this call first came out, it came out as a missing person. So, of course, you're going to have your resources in certain areas. I wasn't doing investigations on other cases. So, search and rescue and other deputies and detectives were on that case, on Terry's initial missing person case. So my supervisor comes in, he says, hey, there's somebody that had contacted the sheriff's office and said that they had a strange incident happen. They had some pizza delivered to their house, and it was under the name of Meador. So, can you do the investigation? I was like, sure. So I I contact the family friend of Terry. He tells me they're very good family friends of Terry. Terry was actually dating one of this person's family members
Right.
at one point in time. He
And even though
Terry
they broke
was
up, they still stayed friends. So yeah.
yeah. So Terry was very good friends with this individual's daughter. She was a 6th grade student at a school here in Rock Springs. So
They would go out on hunting, like scouting trips together. He would show her places. I mean, it sounds like such a sweet relationship.
yeah, Terry would take this individual's daughter out. He would take her hunting. He would go to her school plays.
Aw.
He was, she actually called him Papa Terry.
Yeah.
So Terry was, very big in her life. So I got the report. I got a hold of the pizza place where it came from, contacted them, got a phone number that was associated with the pizza order.
Right.
So I got that. I talked with the pizza place, asked them where, got the information. I got a hold of the person that took it. The person that took the order said that they remembered it being a male
Which is odd.
who made the pizza order.
Right.
So I was like, all right, well, the phone number that was associated with the pizza order, I called, and it had a voicemail of a child.
Right.
It sounded like a, young boy or a girl.
Right.
They would never answer. I left a message. I left a text message. No one ever got back to me. So what I ended up doing was getting a search warrant to Verizon. I determined there was a Verizon phone number, so I got a search warrant to Verizon, determined that it came back to this male individual. I go to the male individual's house to see, okay, what's going on. He tells me the phone number that's associated with the pizza is his granddaughter's phone. So I get the granddaughter's information, and I go to the place where this guy's granddaughter lives and make contact with her and her mother. She tells me that while she was on the school bus home, there was another girl and her friend that not necessarily were bullies, but they took her phone from her because they were wanting to eat pizza that night.
Right.
But so the girl that Terry's friends, the young girl that Terry is friends with from these people that are reporting the pizza, she was talking about wanting pizza that day. So with this other girl, the girl called her mom, which is the people where the pizza got delivered to, called her mom and asked if they could have pizza for that night. So they said, no, I'm making dinner for tonight. So the girl and her friend took this other girl's cell phone and called and ordered the pizza to be sent to this girl's house.
And in Terry's name.
Yes.
Don't you love kids?
Those are the things, like, I don't want to say mean girls, but I mean, it turns out, I guess, after all of the work that you had to do to run this down, you determined it just was a prank. And is there any indication that somehow Terry's name got mixed into this and we don't even really know how?
Yeah, so when I went to the local school where I interviewed the girl, she indicated to me that she knew how good of friends Terry was with his family, and she wanted to, make it look like it was somebody that it could have been from. But she had heard Terry come up in prior conversations and knew that this family, but this was all prior
to him being reported.
Even before Terry being reported as missing.
That's the weird part, the timing. I mean, he is last heard from BJ, his son, on the 20th. This pizza was ordered on the 23rd, and he is not reported missing till the 26th. It's the timing that's so weird to me. That's what's so. But other than that, I'm just going to call it a red herring. I don't have any other, ideas or theories. If you have any ideas or theories that you can share, let me know. But other than that, I'm just going to call it red herring Pizzagate.
Yeah, Pizzagate. Yeah, I mean, as far as, I can think of maybe, when children are weird sometimes, I guess we could say.
No kidding.
As far as, they pick up on anything.
They're like sponges.
So whether we're a small town up here,
right?
Where we have about 25,000 people in the Rock Springs area,
right?
So I mean, people know people,
right?
People's parents talk, kids hear parents talk.
Right.
I could never determine that,
right?
But it's once I figured it out, I still I kind of think I have answers,
right? Yeah, but you never know for sure. Exactly. But you can't spend a lot of time. You already spent enough time running down the information, speaking to Domino's, speaking to the parents, speaking to the girls. I mean, that's a lot of time and energy and effort on something that turned out to just be probably a shitty little behavior from a crappy little girl.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna have to say it like that. I can't help it.
It's and then that's the thing. Sometimes in investigations, you gotta rule just
everything
rule things
out.
All right.
Yeah, you have so
Roll
much
that
to.
Out. Now I got to go to the next. It's and there are people that search for Terry forever.
Yeah.
Even after the scheduled searches, fixed wing aircraft, last summer I had a guy and his son come in. He said he was a medium.
Yeah.
And that he had a premonition where Terry could possibly be. I never heard back from the guy.
But you did something that's it's wonderful. You printed him out maps and gave him information, and that's one of the things I love about most detectives is that you're open to anything. In a case like this, you don't care where the information comes from. If it leads to something and is helpful, you will take it. And I'm just going to say this, and I've said it before. I believe every law enforcement agency across this country has worked with or heard from a psychic or medium. Whether you take the information and it leads to something, that's a different case. But I think most agencies have either heard from psychics or worked with them and are just not, wanting to talk about that because it's still considered, taboo. And in many cases, maybe it isn't helpful. But in my mind, those sorts of things, everything leads to a good form of energy like that. It doesn't matter if maybe what they're doing doesn't give you answers right now. The fact that people are still looking for Terry, the fact that people are still talking about him, that's the kind of thing that I think helps keep the energy moving.
Yes, and keeps Terry's name out in the community.
Yeah.
He grew up here. He is Wyoming.
Yeah.
And I see how this affected his son BJ and his grandkids and his family.
Absolutely.
I could only imagine how BJ feels.
I can't even. Yeah. I mean, it is something we hope we never have to understand and feel. But yeah, all we can do is have all of the empathy we have for someone like BJ, who obviously loves his father very much and wants him home.
Yes, he's done, BJ's been very cooperative. He's been very helpful. With informing him of, this podcast, I sent him the questions you would ask me, and he was more than happy to, help me out with some of them to get an idea more of, Terry's past. Did he like to go hunting often by himself? Things of that sort. kind of questions I already had the answers to, but it's, you still had, how was the weather at that time, and things of that sort. Those were, does cell phone coverage track everywhere and things of that sort. How far is the distance, from a shelter? There are cabins in the area, with coordinating with BJ, on the searches. They got BJ contacted the ranch owners that are out in that area. He got permission to go on their property, and everyone in the whole community was trying to help.
Absolutely.
You have these private landowners that, in Wyoming, if you can suspect that someone's property is their pride and joy, to let, strangers on your property, that you have no idea, what could happen or what, to go and search for him. Terry is a very big thing. And, with the 150 approximate people that showed up to help search on November 3rd, 2018 for Terry, that shows you what type of community that we live in up here.
It sure does.
We care about one another. We I never met Terry. I didn't know BJ. It didn't matter.
Right.
And anybody comes up here, where, put into perspective, if someone was just up here visiting and they got lost, just like Terry did, we would have had the same thing. We would have had people out there helping. We would have had the fixed wing aircraft.
You can feel it. Yeah. You and BJ have both been so open and welcoming. When I approached you about covering Terry's case, which came to us from tipster David, who was one of the people who volunteered to search for Terry. So yeah, that lets you know that your community is a wonderful, loving community that wants to take care of its own. But like you said, even if it was a visitor who was visiting and went missing, the community would rally around that person also. But it's a beautiful thing to see how many people came out and all of the work. I mean, one of the things, I don't know if this is a normal part of your protocol, but one of the things I thought was so interesting that you did was you sent flyers to all of the hunters with licenses in that Pine Mountain area of Sweetwater County, and with Terry's information on it. So anyone who would be out, if they would see him, or, that, I thought that was a very interesting tool, a tactic. Is that something you would normally do?
It's like you said, it's a tool. I mean, in being in investigations, detectives, you got to think outside the box.
I thought that was really interesting.
Figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to figure out. Well, okay, so we have a man and his son that had seen footprints of Terry. And there's people from out of state that gets hunting licenses in these specific areas.
Okay.
So you got to think this guy and his son was hunting in the area. They wouldn't have known to contact law enforcement,
right,
and inform them that, hey, we seen tracks leaving the truck and going down the roadway. They wouldn't have had that information if they were from outside of, Wyoming, Sweetwater County.
That's
because,
so smart.
It was on social media. It was on.
It was. It is. Yeah.
And we have people from Maine, Alaska, with hunting licenses in that specific area of Pine Mountain, whether it be for antelope, deer,
so smart,
bear, anything like that. So I got a hold of Wyoming Game and Fish and provided them with the NamUs poster and just a little, narrative of the incident. And Wyoming Game and Fish sent us all the information on all the hunters, and then we mailed them out each individually flyers to see really if maybe smart. Like, hey, we were out there, we seen that truck, we thought it was odd, but and another thing to put into perspective, people, like I said, people get stuck out here a lot.
All
it's
the
not
time. Yeah.
uncommon
Right.
for you to be driving out in the desert somewhere and see a vehicle stuck and it be abandoned,
Right.
you know. So just certain things like that. We wanted to see if maybe they had more insight, if, you know, because the thing is too, here in Wyoming, especially with hunters and things like that, if you see somebody walking down the road out in the middle of nowhere, you're going to stop. You're going to talk to them.
Right.
You're going to make sure they're okay.
Make sure they're okay. Right.
You're not going to let an elderly man continue just to walk down a roadway
by
in the
himself.
middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know, hunters take care of each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like I said, I don't hunt.
Right.
I've never been hunting once. I grew up here in Wyoming, but I know, you know, from being around, I know how hunters are with each other.
Right.
You know, so whether it be
it's a fraternity.
Terry, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And whether Terry was having a manic episode, because you got to think too, you know, with his disorder, you know, he's cold, he's stuck out in the middle of nowhere. Not necessarily middle of nowhere. He knows where he's at, but not a lot of people go up there, you know, unless they're hunting. You know, he hasn't seen anybody. He had supplies and everything like that, but, you know, with the totality of everything that was going on, you know, it's
supplies
hard
for a long enough time. Yeah, and he was a guy who would typically do day trips and be home in the evening.
Yeah.
He would,
Yeah, especially at his age. You know, BJ told me about a time when he was stuck, BJ was stuck when he was younger, and he said his dad always taught him to stay with the truck, or stay with the vehicle.
Right.
So BJ said that, you know, he remembered a time when he was stuck overnight with his friends because, you know, but they knew not to leave the vehicle because that's what Terry always told him.
Right. Sometimes it's like, do as I say, not as I do, though. Yeah. I mean, you know, especially as a parent. So let's go over just a couple of things that may have meaning or may not. The 24th anniversary of his wife having passed away was the same week he went missing. Is there any chance that put him in a state that he wasn't behaving the way he normally would?
All indications is that he, you know, was, you know, from when BJ spoke to him on the 20th of October, Terry seemed to be in good spirits. He seemed to be fine. You know, BJ didn't say that he noticed anything, you know, his dad doing anything different or
everything I've read, you know, and such great questions were asked by you and others in law enforcement. Did Terry ever, you know, say that he would want to end his own life? And he had never really expressed that to anyone except offhandedly to someone on a golf trip, that if he ever, you know, got sick or he would go out on his own terms. Hey, we all want that. That isn't, right. That's not a statement that, you know, I mean, I'm very hyperbolic and I say things in a very large dramatic way. So if I say, you know, I'm going to kill myself, I don't mean I'm going to kill myself. And he never said that. He, you know, said, you know, if when the time comes, I'm going to go out my own way. Completely understandable and something we all want. And, you know, right. As you get older, something you think about. So right, it wasn't something out of the ordinary for him to say that. It wasn't like he was threatening something. So there's that. The only other questions I have are, and these may not be important, but they struck me as so odd because BJ seemed fairly concerned about a phone call on his records. And he wrote the name Charlotte next to it, which was the name of the realtor. But there was a phone call to the Sands Inn. Do you believe that was a mistaken call, like a butt dial? Or do you believe that had any sort of meaning?
You know, I could never determine either way.
Right.
You know, because when I located the duration of the call, it was under a minute.
Right.
So I called Sands. And the Sands Inn, and I asked the owner, I was like, hey, could you just not answer? I want to see how long, you know, and to see whether, okay, well, if it just rings and rings and rings. And when I did that, it matched the duration of the call. when Terry's phone had called that same number.
Right.
So I could never determine either way whether
Right.
it was a
Just
butt
an
dial,
accidental.
whether
Yeah.
Terry was actually, trying to contact somebody there or what. But that was definitely strange.
It is strange. And BJ
Yeah.
had no information that his dad had any friend staying there or had any reason that he would be staying there. It just was an odd thing.
Yes.
And-
yeah. And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and we
I
don't
wasn't
know
gonna
that call on the 25th, the one that was able to ping his cell phone. We don't know if that was a call or a text. It was just long enough in duration that it was able to ping his phone. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were unable to determine that.
Isn't that amazing? Like I said, it's just, you see things on fictional TV shows and you want to believe that that's the way life goes. That it's like, oh, we'll get his cell phone records. Somebody who doesn't even use his phone that often, but we'll get his records. We'll be able to find something, anything. And it really wasn't a lot of information for you to work with. And it feels like you've done so much, you and a group. I know it's not one person, it's a village, and obviously in the area, it's a real lovely village where people reach out and continue to search for Terry. What do you think happened?
I believe that Terry got stuck. He got out of his vehicle, tried to dig himself out. That area is so moist and cold up at that time. I think he got very cold trying to dig himself out. And I think it got to a point where, possibly hypothermia started to be a factor. I believe he, for some reason, felt like, whether it be seen headlights or thought he had seen something, started walking the direction down the roadway. And I think whether it be, totality of his medical issue and the hypothermia, I think he veered off the roadway and got into some thick brush and then got lost. And I think he, up in that area, you have animals, you have, coyotes,
Scavengers.
foxes, bears, scavengers.
So much
I've been to
wildlife. Yeah.
Yeah. In the area of Wyoming, just this morning it was 7 degrees.
Right.
You add the wind chill to that, or in December when it's that much colder, you're in the negative 20s.
Right.
It doesn't take
long. Yeah.
Especially, so back to what I believe, I think he probably, tried to get somewhere warm, whether it be leaning up against a tree or something like that. And I think he passed away.
So the last thing it seems like that he was wearing potentially was an orange hunter's jacket. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. So potentially, because he never went up there without his hunting equipment, that's mainly thing a hunter goes up there is they need their fluorescent orange. So
yeah. So they're safe. Yeah. He had
so they're safe
scope.
And you don't get shot by
right. So you don't get shot.
some other hunter.
That's sort of what I meant by being safe. But
yeah.
So you don't get mistaken for a doe or whatever, or buck or whatever.
Yeah.
So he had a rifle with a scope and a tripod, which it would make perfect sense as a hunter. That was left in the truck. And potentially BJ said he had a pistol and that wasn't found. So he may have taken his pistol with him. He may have had that.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that his pistol was never located. So possibly pistol. So there was a pistol that was located up in that area at one time that somebody had found, but it wasn't, it didn't come back to Terry.
Come back to him.
And BJ said that wasn't his.
Right. So he has maybe a pistol and maybe a jacket and not, the proper clothing for when the temperatures drop, the weather. He doesn't have his medication. He potentially got lost. I mean, I don't I'm amazed at the number of people who have done work on this case, and I know there'll probably be more. If there's someone who wants to look for Terry, what's your best suggestion to them?
Get to know the area. There's certain things in technology now. You can, Pine Mountain, Sweetwater County, you can get photos of the area, you can get aerial views, you can come up with your own search grid.
Mm-hmm.
Let someone know where you're going.
Yeah, that's
definitely
that's a good one.
Have the proper equipment with you for, say you get stuck,
Right.
Food, water, cell phone chargers. Even though they could not work, you'd be surprised in areas that they don't work at nighttime. They do.
Right.
It's weird.
No, that makes sense. It's like radio waves. You can get further distance at night. Yeah, I get that.
Stay with your vehicle. Someone's gonna find you.
Do something. Do what Terry said, not what Terry did.
Correct.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna find you. I mean, we have, this search and rescue sheriff's office just purchased a machine. It's called Hagland, and wow. it's fixed on tracks, and they can pretty much get to wherever they need to go to find you or to go save you.
That's a great thing.
But if you're not in an area that where you're at, and that, because it's easy for us to see a truck or something like that. It's so hard in this area. If you're just a person, especially in nighttime, we're not going to find you. Right. Necessarily.
That's a real needle in a haystack.
Yeah. Stay with your vehicle and enjoy Wyoming if you come down. Yeah.
So what's a number that if anyone has any information on Terry's case that they can contact you? Where can they get you?
Yeah, so my office phone number is going to be 307-922-5345. We are coming up with a new search coming up this summer.
Awesome.
We're going to the information I gave you had the search and rescue map to where they were suggesting that the drone searches be done, because that's so steep for somebody. Someone could get hurt. Right. And of course we don't want to have that happen.
It's better with machinery than humans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then seeing what we can find, and
I'm glad there's a search plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough, Detective Wharton, for taking your time to talk about Terry's case. And we're really grateful for people like you that work so hard on these kind of cases. You're a priceless gem. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We are so grateful to Detective Matt Wharton from the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department for taking his time today to speak with us. And if you know anything about what happened to Terry, if you saw something, if you heard something, please call the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department at 307-922-5345 and more cowbell.
If you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/just the Tip-Sters.